So this is the apocalypse, huh? I always knew I would have something to do with it. Oh, hi, I didn't see you come in. Probably because the laws of physics have been destroyed, so the concepts of in and out no longer exist in the way that we used to know them. How are you doing today? Oh, me? Oh, you know. I was kind of bummed that everything in the world had been so bad this year, that people were actually talking about canceling Halloween. So I decided to try and bring some spookiness into everyone's lives by reading some cursed text from an ancient tome. Might have overdone it a little bit. I don't know, I'm probably imagining things. What do you think, Wrath befall the abyss that lives? Oh, Wrath befall the abyss that lives. You would say that. Yeah, that thing stepped on the supermarket and ate 3 bodegas yesterday, so, things are not good right now. I will admit that, but it's okay, because I have a plan to fix all of this. I'm going to go to the swirling mass of souls in the center of town and chuck this book inside of it. That should reset all of this. And I am basing that on absolutely nothing. But I have seen a lot of horror films, and if they've taught me anything, it's that when you throw ancient artifacts into swirling chaos voids, it tends to undo all the damage. Or send you back in time where you will be worshipped as a god. I'm cool with both options. But if we are indeed living in the end times right now, it is Thorgiween, and YouTube somehow managed to survive the infinite demonic miasma that is currently consuming the entire planet. Probably because it was spawned from it, and that means that we still have to make videos. So if this is indeed the end of the world, what better time to talk about some of our favorite horror movie endings? Yes, I love a good horror movie, but what can take a good film and turn it into a great film is when a movie sticks the landing. When it has an ending that just knocks it out of the park. How many amazing franchises began with that one last scare? That haunting vision that the monster is still out there and that our heroes will never be free of this nightmare. Or sometimes everything works out for our heroes and the movie actually reminds you that there's some hope out there in the world. And some other times, it's a found footage film, and the movie just ends by having the camera drop to the ground and then credits. Yeah, we're probably not going to have too many of those on this list. But here are our top 10 favorite horror movie endings, and needless to say, there will be some spoilers ahead. So, here's how this is going to work. I'm going to tell you the name of the movie, then we will post a time code down below of when the next number begins. So if you see the movie pop up and you don't want to be spoiled, pause the video and then just jump to the next number. Enjoy, everyone! Number 10, Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby is the story of a woman who has moved into an apartment with her new husband and finds that her neighbors are really overly attached. Yeah, let's go with that. She begins to have strange dreams and soon finds out that she's pregnant, but as the pregnancy goes on, she starts to suspect her neighbors are up to something. Eventually, she learns they're part of a cult that worships the devil, and her child is the spawn of Satan, the Antichrist destined to destroy the world. Now, apparently the original ending for the film saw the baby being kidnapped by the cult, Rosemary stumbles upon their plan, and then the final image was of a tiny demonic hand rising out of the cradle. This was changed though, and now when Rosemary discovers the cult, she understandably flips out on them, but then is overwhelmed by what she's seen and she just sort of gives up. She sits down and accepts that there's nothing she can do. And when she sees the cult members trying to calm the child down, she tells them they're rocking the baby wrong. She then gets a moment to care for the child as all the cult members crowd around her. Throughout this film, we watched as Rosemary kept trying to tell everyone that something was wrong and no one would listen to her. They constantly told her, no, you're imagining things, which was meant to be a metaphor for the way that society often dismissed the concerns and problems of women. So this ending is chilling because we see the character who spent the entire film fighting for control, now just giving up and joining this cult to help raise the Antichrist. But when you think about the metaphorical implications of this ending, it's just really heavy and depressing. A real shutout for the devil on this one, folks. Yeah, I didn't say they were all going to be happy endings, just good endings. And with a film as depressing as Rosemary's Baby, this is probably the most hopeless they could have made you feel at the end of this film. Which is kind of impressive. Number 9, Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods is basically a giant salute to horror films, and I don't just mean it's loaded with references that make you point at the screen like a Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I mean, yes, it has that too, but it actually has really clever deconstructions of the entire genre, essentially pulling back the curtain and saying that all horror films are created by a secret organization that has to carry out an ancient ritual where they must sacrifice a set number of victims each year. Otherwise, giant old gods will return and destroy the world. And there are numerous rules to these sacrifices, such as each victim must fit a certain role, like the athlete, the jokey one, the smart one, basically all the classic horror movie tropes. And they must be sacrificed by their own choice, meaning they have to do something really dumb that ends up summoning the monster that kills them. Sounds like it would be really hard to get all these different characters together and have them accidentally kill themselves year after year. But you learn that this secret organization is essentially manipulating them so they are forced into these situations. Well, this year, the unlucky victims end up stumbling upon this secret organization, and when they learn that this is what they've been doing for centuries now, our heroes do the unthinkable. They say, "F it. If this is what it takes for the world to keep going, then it ain't worth saving. Burn the whole thing down, let the old gods come, and hopefully the world that they create will be better than what we have here." Just gonna throw my own 2 cents in there and say that's a horrible idea. This was a huge shock because in a film that was meant to be one huge commentary on the horror genre, the movie essentially turned to the audience and said, "This is bullcrap and we're not going to continue it." Now you can read into that as a call for more originality in the genre, but even if I'm reading too much into that and there's nothing actually here behind the surface level, just having our heroes face down the big bad guys of the entire film and say, "Yeah, we're not going to figure out a way to stop this, so screw it. Let's all go down together." Yeah, you don't really see that in most movies. Number 8, The Witch. The Witch follows a family in the 1600s who are living out in the woods because they've been exiled from the only town nearby. They've managed to carve out a life for themselves until their family is cursed by a witch living in the woods. Slowly, paranoia begins to set in as the family starts to turn on each other, believing that their oldest daughter is the witch, that she made a pact with Satan to gain dark powers, and that she's the one that cursed them. She, of course, isn't the witch, but the family is still driven mad by these accusations, even thinking that the goat they're raising, Black Phillip, is the devil in disguise. Eventually, the entire family dies off except for the oldest daughter, who is left broken and desperate for someone, anyone, to help her. So she actually turns to Black Phillip, hoping that maybe he actually is the devil. She's become that desperate. She asks if he can understand her, but there's no reply. So she begins to walk away, only to hear, "What dost thou want?" I will never forget the giant gasp I let out at that moment. It was so obvious watching this movie that Black Phillip was just a goat, that all these accusations were just a red herring, and then the movie turns to you and reveals, nope, the red herring was real the entire time. From there, we watch as this girl decides to give in and becomes a bride of Satan, joining the other witches of the woods. Meaning that much like Rosemary's Baby, this is another one of those endings that is just soul-crushing in how the protagonist that we've been following this entire time just loses in every sense of the word. Not just in their fight for their family, but in the fight for their own sanity. Combine that with that stunning twist, and it's no surprise I talk about how much I love this film almost every year during Thorgiween. Number 7, Drag Me to Hell. Drag Me to Hell follows a young woman who ends up getting cursed and is told in a few days she will be dragged to hell. Hey, that's the name of the movie, everyone. The curse is connected to a button of hers, and as long as she owns that button, she can't get rid of the curse. Now, she could give that button away to someone, but then they would end up being cursed to go to hell, and she can't bring herself to do that. Until it occurs to her, wait, I don't have to give this to someone living. And she realizes she can give the button to the woman who cursed her, even though she's already dead, basically turning the curse back on her. After fighting and struggling to push through every magic spell that can be thrown her way, she manages to give the button to the grave of the curse giver. She wakes up the next morning and everything is fine. No spells are messing with her, no demons haunting her. She's free. She goes to meet her boyfriend, and the two of them share a loving, tender moment. The evil has truly been defeated, and this poor, innocent soul has been saved. That is until her boyfriend says, "Oh, hey, I found this on the floor of your car," and pulls out the button. It had fallen out of the envelope she shoved it into, and she never delivered it to the woman that cursed her. I can't describe to you how much my stomach sank the moment that he pulled that button out. I felt like the earth had opened up under me and swallowed me up. Speaking of that, we then have to sit and watch in horror as that exact thing happens to our protagonist, as this charming, loving, uplifting moment is immediately slammed up against one of the most terrifying images I've ever seen in a horror film, as we watch her, well, you know. This is the kind of dark juxtaposition that only a master of horror like Sam Raimi could pull off. And speaking of Sam Raimi, number 6, Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness sees our lovable trash-talking badass/dumbass Ash Williams sent back in time to battle the forces of the Necronomicon in medieval England. Once he wins the day, he has to take a potion and recite a magical phrase to return home. Now, here's where this gets interesting, because there are actually 2 endings to this film. And in my experience, most people I've spoken to say that they like the director's cut ending more, where Ash takes too much of the potion and wakes up in a post-apocalyptic world where the Deadites have taken over. And no, I didn't rip that idea off for this year's Thorgiween, why do you ask? They say they love this ending because it sets up a 4th Evil Dead film. A film where Ash now has to fight against a world taken over by demons. And I understand how that's a cool idea for a movie, but we never got that movie. Meaning that ending would kind of been for nothing. Which is actually why I enjoyed the official releases ending more, because this was the end of this franchise. Not including a bunch of comics and a few seasons of a TV show, and the way that the theatrical release ends kinda sends our hero out with a bang. He returns home, goes back to his old job at S-Mart, where once again he's just a regular schlub talking about his adventures to his fellow employees who can't stand him, and it's revealed that because he is such an idiot, he might have accidentally screwed up the spell that he used to get back here and ended up bringing some of the Deadites back with him. And from here on out, Ash is going to have to spend the rest of his days working in housewares and blasting away demons. He saves the day once again, gives one final cheesy line to the camera, and credits. I think the Evil Dead series is one of the best horror franchises out there, and this was a great way to send it off. Number 5, The Mist. Just when you thought these endings couldn't get any more depressing, The Mist follows a group stuck in a shopping center with some strange, well, mist starting to cover the town. Monsters begin to appear in this bizarre fog and things begin to look grim, but eventually our hero takes him, his son, and a handful of other survivors out into a car and they start driving. They have no destination, they just want to escape this monstrous dimension that they find themselves in. Only to learn that this mist has spread across the entire world. No place is safe, and eventually they can't go any further. They're stranded in the middle of nowhere. Monsters on all sides, and they have one gun left. They can't let these monsters get them, so the father decides he's going to kill everyone else so they can at least have a quick death, ending with him having to kill his own child. He's now left there in the car, waiting for the demons to come and tear him apart, only for the military to roll in, burning the mist away, here to save the day. We have had a lot of downer endings on this episode, but none of them hurt quite like this. Just that knowledge that if our heroes had waited 5 more minutes before they gave up, help would have arrived and they would have been saved. It's one of those endings that will sit in the pit of your stomach and never really leave. Number 4, The Thing. This movie is such a classic at this point. I don't even know if I need the spoiler warning because I think most people have seen it. And if you haven't seen it, then for crying out loud, go and see it. The Thing is amazing. The film follows a research team stranded in the Arctic when they uncover an alien life form that can copy any of their DNA, replicating them perfectly. One by one, it tears through them,
leaving the team decimated with only a few survivors who don't even know who to trust. At the end, they've blown up the base and everyone in, except for McCready and Childs. The two of them stare each other down, wondering if help will arrive in time to save them. But more importantly, wondering if the other one is really the Thing. And what's great about this ending, the thing that puts it up here at number 4, is that we don't know the answer to that either. We don't know if either of them is actually the Thing. We don't even know if McCready is the Thing, and we've been following him this entire movie. And as the film fades to credits, we're just left with more questions. Did the Thing survive? Is it going to make it to civilization and take over? Were neither of them the Thing and help arrived on time? Or were neither of them the Thing, but their paranoia got the best of them and they ended up killing each other? I have a lot of respect for a film that can pull off an ending that leaves you with questions, and this ending nails that. Number 3, Get Out. This is another film that has a theatrical ending and an alternate ending, and I thought the theatrical ending was great, but after seeing the alternate ending, after seeing how this movie was originally going to end, my opinion on the theatrical ending went from great up to amazing, spectacular, maybe the best way this film could possibly have ended. This film is all about Chris, a young photographer who goes to visit his girlfriend's family for the first time, his girlfriend being white and Chris being black. As the movie goes on, you learn that her family is actually involved in some mad scientist socialites ring where they lobotomize black people to put the minds of old white people into them. Chris tries to escape, but it's no use. His girlfriend reveals she's in on it and they knock him out. In the final moments before he gets experimented on, Chris is able to escape and he takes out everyone in the house, ending with him about to kill his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend at this point, but he stops himself before he gives into his anger, standing up and deciding to leave her there, only for the flashing red and blue lights of a cop car to appear. Now, in the original ending, the cops arrest Chris and he's sent to jail for the rest of his life. His friend Rod, a TSA agent and the only guy in the movie who believed something was up and kept trying to get someone to listen to him so that they could go and help Chris, is there and tells him he's still trying to get Chris out. But Chris just says, it doesn't matter, and he walks back into prison, having been beaten down by everything he's gone through and having completely given up. However, the ending that they went with in the theatrical release reveals that the flashing police lights we saw actually belong to a TSA car, and Rod pops out, having taken matters into his own hands to come and rescue his friend. The two of them drive off, with Chris asking how he found him, and Rod just replies,
I'm TS A. We handle.
Now, I understand what Jordan Peele was going for with the original ending. He was trying to make a film about racism and the way that society is structured around oppression. That's why in the original ending, he wanted to show that even if Chris beat the bad guys, it wouldn't matter because the world was so against him that even if he was innocent, he was still going to go to jail. And I understand how that ending does reinforce the message of the film. But the reason why I love this ending is because the moment we saw those police lights, we already wrote that original ending in our heads. We all saw that original ending playing out in our minds the moment that we saw that cop car arrive. So the lesson that Jordan Peele wanted to put into that ending of this film is still there. It still hits us. But after Chris suffered so much, after the horrifying things that he went through, yeah, we just needed a happy ending. So seeing Rod come in and rescue Chris at the very end, it was exactly what we needed. This was an amazing way in order to give us that big emotional message that he wanted to have in that original ending, while still leaving us with some hope. Number 2, Ready or Not.
When this movie came out, I said it didn't just have one of my favorite horror movie endings of all time, it had one of my favorite endings of all time. Period. Of any genre. But now that I have had a year to think about that and reflect upon, I have decided that, yeah, that's still true. I still think the ending of this film is amazing. And I just want to come in here real quick and remind everyone, if you have not seen this film, check the time code down below for when the next number begins, because this is still a pretty recent film, and a lot of people don't know how this ends, and I really don't want to spoil it for anyone. It is that good, and you definitely need to check it out yourself.
This movie follows a young bride who, on the night of marrying into a wealthy family, must play a game. The game is hide and seek, except if she's found before sunrise, they kill her. Why is this? Well, because centuries ago, this family was given their immense wealth by a mysterious benefactor who may or may not have been the devil, and if they want to keep this evil spirit happy, then they have to occasionally sacrifice someone through this game. This family is made up of the most snobbish, spoiled, bratty, rich people stereotypes imaginable, so you already kinda hate them. But after a movie of them hunting down our protagonist, who continues to grow in likability with each close call she escapes from, yeah, by the end of this film, you despise this family. Especially after her new husband, who had been fighting his family this entire time, has to choose between his new wife or his family, and he chooses his family. So the family is about to sacrifice her, only to find they're too late. The sun has come up. They couldn't kill her before the end of the night, and the family panics and braces for what is to come. Only for nothing to happen. Yeah, it turns out that whole curse and the mystery man their ancestors spoke of, yeah, none of it was real. They had been sacrificing people for really nothing for generations now. And seeing this family have to come to terms with what they had done was great. Watching this weenie of a husband try to walk back that he just tried to sacrifice his wife was hilarious. That is, up until...
The girl still dies!
Psych! Turns out the curse was real. It was just on delay. And then we watch as each member of this family explodes, one by one, only for the ghost of the mysterious benefactor to appear as the house starts to burn down to give the bride one last nod like, hey, congrats, you made it. It's great when a movie can have a twist, especially when that twist can make you laugh your ass off. But it's even better when after the first twist, it is immediately followed up by a second twist that makes you laugh your ass off all over again. And the number one best horror movie ending of all time, Night of the Living Dead. I know, after picking two modern hits, it might feel a bit stale and safe to go with such an old classic, but what can I say? I think the ending to Night of the Living Dead is still incredible all these decades later. You all know the movie by now. A group of strangers all run into a house as the dead have started to walk the earth. They board themselves up inside and tensions begin to run high as these survivors turn on each other. But when things start to go bad, it all falls apart quickly and eventually Ben is the only survivor. But the next day, the coast is clear and he emerges from the house having just survived the most brutal night of his life. Only for a roaming militia who have taken it upon themselves to clear out all the zombies to shoot him in the head and then move on without giving it another thought. This ending gets to the number one spot because, as I said, after all these years, it still packs a punch. But I do believe it is important to judge these films against the time that they came out. And this film came out in 1968. And sure, there were horror endings with downer endings before this, but I had never seen a horror film before this end so senselessly. To go out with an ending where our hero survived the monsters only for other human beings to kill them off for really no reason. It was a depth of despair that most films weren't capable of producing back then. But more importantly, this film came out during the Civil Rights Movement, when racial tensions in America were at a peak and Ben was a black man. So seeing a gang of gun-toting white men kill him, even though he was our hero, even though he had survived so much, it was kind of a huge statement on racism in America, back at a time when movies were not really bold enough to make statements about racism in America. This makes this not just one of the most shocking endings to a horror film, it also makes it one of the boldest endings to a film of any genre.
Well, there you have it, everyone, our top 10 horror movie endings. Let us know yours in the comments down below. But make no mistake, just because we're talking about endings doesn't mean anything is over. No, far from it. Thorgiween is just getting started. Yes, I know this year has been rough on everyone. And yes, I know that the sky is currently on fire. And yes, I know that there are roaming hordes of demons currently tearing the entire planet apart, but I don't care. Actually, I care a little bit, especially about that sky on fire thing. That sounds really important, and like we should probably do something about that. But Thorgiween is going to continue no matter what, darn it. So make sure that you come back every single day this month for brand new horror movie reviews and tons of other spooky goodness. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and happy Halloween.